All right, so let's hop right in. What are these 4 attributes of an effective follower that we're going to discuss in this professional development session? Well, first of all, let me say that I want to transition our vocabulary just a little bit. As you've heard, I've been calling this role that we're describing today follower, but the description that I really want to use is supporter. And the reason why I want to use that is because in my mind and in my ear, the word supporter sounds a little more proactive than just saying a follower. You know, a follower can just be someone who's just walking behind someone else. They're not necessarily engaged in what's going on. They're just there. But a supporter is someone who is actively playing a role in the success of the endeavor. So if you just think back to the balloon game, a follower would be the kids that are just standing around and they're not even really aware of when their turn comes to do something. A supporter would be someone who is actively watching the team member in front of them, you know, checking to see, you know, if there's some information coming back about what their next step's going to be. You know, they're engaged in the next picture. They know where their role fits in, you know, those types of things. So that would be the difference for me. So throughout the rest of this, we're going to talk about this as in terms of supporter versus just a follower. So there are 3 pillars to this, and these attributes that I'm going to describe really fall under the supporter's mindset. Later on in other professional development sessions, I'll talk about our view of the leader's authority and how that kind of ties into how we respond to a leader. And then also we'll take a look at the organizational structure, because the organizational structure has to support the company's ideas and intentions when it comes to followership. So looking at the supporter's mindset, let's get right into it. These 4 attributes that I want to point out, we'll just go through them really quickly. They're simple to understand, simple to grasp, but again, we want to evaluate our own followership and how well we express these with our leaders in our lives. As I go through, I'm going to be describing my relationship with leaders in my life, such as, say, the Lord, first and foremost, of course. Then also leaders like my dad and my mother-in-law. You know, they're leaders in my life. They're elders who, you know, they have influence. Then I want to think about some of the organizations that we work alongside. For instance, today happens to be the day we got our announcement about being selected as the Lowndes County Schools Neglected and Delinquent Program contractor again. So congratulations, team. That's a congratulations to all of us. We're all a part of that selection. So Mr. Hamilton is the person that I look to as a leader. He's a person of authority. And then also we have the 2 boards, the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, as well as the South Georgia Workforce Development Board. We're accountable to those in terms of how we interact and choices we make about you know, providing services in different ways. So there you go. All of us have leaders. All of us have people who we are accountable to. So I want you to think across the board, this isn't just training on how to be a ENA coaching employee. This is about all of the leadership that we look to in our lives. So the first element of being a strong and effective supporter is a conscious commitment. And what I mean by conscious commitment is, like we said before in part 1, you know, it's about knowing who you're following and what you're following and why you're doing it. So you have a purpose to what you're doing and you're totally locked into it. Okay. So you're not just blindly following. You are a person who is knowledgeable about the goals and the outcomes, and you want those goals just as bad as the leader does. And you understand your part in achieving those goals. So conscious commitment is the first. So I think about, you know, family goals we have. You know, when I think about interacting with my dad and mother-in-law, I think about family goals we have when it comes to, you know, of course, my leadership in my family, how the Lord wants me to walk out being a husband and a dad. Of course, I think about our roles with working with youth in foster care, you know, How well am I supporting Mr. Hamilton in his endeavor to provide the best support to these kids he possibly can? Same with the chamber and workforce development. So knowing what we're following and why. And regarding that, I'm even thinking about the decision to even serve on the chamber board. Came to you guys and asked, what do you guys think about this decision? Because it's something that impacts us all. So I want us all to know what we're following, what we're involved in, and why. Then you think about this one. This one's huge to me. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is definitely a part of being an effective supporter. And when I talk about enthusiasm, a lot of times you think of that person in the company that's always like jumping up on the furniture and high-fiving everybody and woohooing every single goal you make or whatever. And that's great if that is genuinely your personality and that's how you express yourself. That's fine. But real enthusiasm is shown when a person just puts themselves in position for success. And that is something that I'm working on. My number one area of wanting to be good at expressing enthusiasm is punctuality, being on time for things. Being on time is a huge expression of enthusiasm. And then, of course, just being prepared, it shows that you're thinking ahead when you show up ready to take notes or to share ideas, that there's been some forethought to whatever you're doing. Forethought shows enthusiasm. So please share some more ideas in your writing about how you express enthusiasm. Then there's focus. Okay. Focus is paying attention to the details and paying attention to excellence and delivering. And, I think for obvious reasons, having focus on your role and being an expert on your role, those details that apply to what you're responsible for, it's huge. A leader has a lot of things to look at, and they have a team to pay attention to those details. Otherwise, the leader would have to pay attention to tons and tons of details all the time. That's not tenable. So that team member's role as a good supporter is to know what details matter and be able to share that back to the leaders and provide, really strong support that way. I think about how we do that. We've taken on some roles that no one's really asked us to, in terms of what we do with the Chamber of Commerce, in terms of being like a family education and goal setting type company. No one else really does that the way that we do it in terms of, a company that's focused on those things in the chamber. So we have a huge role to play right now. And being able to provide those details to other leaders and help them make the decisions they have to make is a special thing. And we're particularly positioned for that. So focus is just giving attention to the details, attention to excellence. And the final one is cooperation. And when I say cooperation, I don't just mean getting along with your teammates or getting along with your leaders. This kind of cooperation is talking about being open to receiving guidance and without taking it personally or feeling like, oh, I'm a bad performer because this person corrected me or gave me some information or training or something like that. It's where we receive guidance willingly because we know the leader wants the best outcome possible and we want the best outcome possible. So guidance helps us make sure we're aligned and we're both aiming directly at the same thing. So cooperation is also a collaborative effort of communicating what the outcomes need to be. So those are the four essential elements in my mind of being an effective supporter. So I want each of us, all of us, to take a look at those a little more closely. If you have more ideas on those to share, please do. And also want us to kind of like grade ourselves, score ourselves on how well we walk out those four attributes in serving the leaders that are in our lives, all the leaders in our lives. And that, I think, will be a very healthy and fruitful exploration as we're growing in things like more gratitude, more communication, more customer service, and even communicating what we do outward to the community with our different roles. So thank you very much. Look forward to your feedback. Love you guys. See you later.